Welcome back. This is Marketing Management and Money. I am Ryan Murray.
And I'm Ryan Owens.
And together we are your hosts that are going to be covering a myriad of topics, all things small business. Now, I really want to look at the business plan in today's episode because it's such a common thing that everyone's like, oh, you got to have a business plan, got to have a business plan.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to pick it apart a little bit.
Sure.
Instead of just saying, hey, okay, here are the steps to write a business plan. You know, I mean, you can Google that.
Yeah, that's all over the internet.
Right. I want to look at the marketing section of a business plan.
Okay.
So, you know, I've had the opportunity to review literally hundreds of business plans, and I've seen some great business plans. Most of them are not great.
Yeah.
Most of them, you know, the wheels are falling apart as they're trying to drive 60 miles an hour down the freeway.
They need help for sure.
Yeah. And one of the biggest areas where they need help is the marketing section of the business plan. Like, I would see these business plans that they'd come in and, you know, I'd be like, okay, let's look at your marketing section. Because here's the truth of the matter. The marketing section is what's going to drive the sales, and the sales is what's going to get the business off the ground. Like, especially if you're in a startup, you know, if you don't have any sales, you got to get the growth. And so, you know, I mean, there's a lot to learn about the relationship of sales and cash flow. We did a whole episode on that. I don't want to go into that level of detail, but you got to have the marketing to get those sales going, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I'd go to these marketing sections of the business plan, and I'd look at them. I'd be like, oh, you know, I see here that, you know, by year 2, you expect to be clearing $1 million annually. I'm like, that's awesome. Congratulations.
Fairly typical of small business growth, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You know, you go from startup to clearly over $1 million, and easy. And so I would want to see the plan that was driving that growth. And so, you know, I'd turn to that marketing section and I would see crap like, I'm going to do social media ads, and then I'm going to print flyers, and then...
Word of mouth.
Yeah. Word of mouth was code for I don't have a plan, so I'm just going to go around talking to people.
Yeah, and not the word of mouth is invalid.
No,
it's just...
It's not a plan unless it's backed up by like you just going and talking to people, getting online and being like, hey, everybody, I have a cool product.
Tell your friends about it.
Right.
Please.
It's not going to go
Pretty please.
Anywhere. And so, you know, I would see these plans and I kind of wondered, I'm like, what was the planning process? Like, what brought you to this stage?
No, I get that. I think that when you get to the marketing section of a business plan, or even just marketing in a small business in general, there's so much about it that seems like ethereal, really. Like it's these concepts that are floating around, and it's
buzzword, tagline,
and it's a lot easier to look at a financial section of a business or a segment of a business and be like, okay, here are the numbers, right? Because it's very concrete.
I'm not going to say it's not easier. It's a lot cleaner.
Okay, yeah.
You know,
sure.
2 + 2 = 4.
Right.
And
Obviously, you have to have those numbers, right?
But in marketing, it's not necessarily that
it's not as
A
quantifiable.
+ B always gives you C.
Right. Exactly. It's a little more. It's like, oh man, it's like calling I don't know if I could say this joke. It's like calling psychology a science. I can say that joke because that's my degrees in psychology. We do testing. We use science, quote unquote.
Right.
But it's like that, really.
Sure.
It's like these really, these topics that you almost have to have kind of this gut feeling for in a lot of ways.
Sure.
To really be expert and drive this crap home. But fortunately, small businesses don't need all of that. So marketing doesn't have to be complicated like that. And I think that that's why people get confused, is because they're looking for these like expert maneuvers and techniques and things that go on in marketing.
They're looking
and they don't need that. They need the basics.
Yeah, they're looking for unicorns. They're looking for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
They've heard the stories of us like, oh man, this guy, he just blew his business, out of the water with this one technique. I'm like, no, there's not one technique. It's a lot of hard work. There's some trial and error. There are some things that you need to do as a small business. And that's, so we're going to talk about that planning process, but let's get into like, what are some things, how do you even start that planning process? You know,
Sure.
That's where I want to kick this off, is how do you even start that planning process?
So I think a really great a personal example of this was one that I had with, I went to this, it was a startup weekend, quote unquote, kind of a deal, right? Like an incubator kind of a thing where you have this challenge of you get together with a group of people you've never met before, and you essentially come up with and research and kind of prove this small business concept, and then you pitch it, right?
Why does this sound like reality TV Survivor for small businesses? Like you get voted off the island.
It 100% was. Oh my gosh. So we have hundreds of people show up to this deal, right? And it's 3 days nonstop. You are awake every hour, right? You're doing something.
So like boot camp style. Like you show up and then for 3 days you're locked in your prison cell with some guys you've never met before.
Not quite locked in, but close, right?
Okay.
So like, I had never met any of these guys, and all of a sudden we're thrown together, and it's like, hey, what do you do? Oh, you know a little bit of coding. Oh, you know a little bit of marketing. Okay, you're the idea generator kind of a guy, and we kind of like come together and we divvy up all of these tasks, and we take this concept that we came up with, and we essentially hurried up and threw together a basic online presence, social media, webpage.
Oh,
that
you
kind
like
of thing.
Build this in like 3 days.
Yeah, like super, super quick. We put out online surveys. We went out and did in-person research, and we came up with like all these questions, and all this kind of stuff was like banged out in 3 days.
Okay.
And it's like, well, yeah, that's easy. Just like go on Wix and I'm sorry, it's not. It was brutal. And yeah, I mean, it was like this huge building, right? There were 2 full-size basketball courts down in the basement. There was this quote-unquote quiet room off to the side where people like weren't supposed to talk, and you could go work and people would sleep or whatever if they needed to. But really, we were just living off of like monsters and popcorn. I don't know. It was terrible. And anyway, so at the end of this 3-day experience, we had this presentation that we had put together with some of our numbers and like the survey results and things that we did. And we pitched this to not only the group of our peers, but also to this like panel of quote unquote experts, almost like Shark Tank style kind of stuff.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Where they had like a sales expert and a marketing expert and a finance expert, and they would ask us relevant questions, right? Mm-hmm. Like, have you guys thought about this? And have you guys thought about that? So then this group of our peers could then go in and vote for which concept they thought was going to be best.
Okay.
And then it was like, hey, you're voted off the island because your idea sucked, or you didn't do good enough research, or we have no idea what you're trying to do here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And ultimately the end of the 3 days, it was just like really smelly, and I think somebody won. Somebody got some money at some point. I'm not sure if it was a bribe or prize money. I don't know, but
or just pay to end this thing.
Yeah, stop, please. I'm so tired. But really, there are some really good things in there, right? Because it's like really, really scrappy, and that's how small business is. That's how startups are.
Right.
It's like you use anything and everything at your disposal to kind of get this thing rolling. Mm-hmm. But there are key pieces to it, right, that you can't skip over. Like, we couldn't have just taken this idea and be like, oh, that's a genius idea, and then we're going to build a website, and then we're going to go tell these judges, be like, hey, yeah, no, it works. Well, how do you know? Because I said so. and I'm not going to give you my money. Yeah, no, give me your money. No. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that right there is where I get hung up, is when people start talking about the marketing, and there is a creative side to marketing.
Absolutely.
There's a huge creative side to marketing.
And it's fun.
It is fun. Yeah.
But that often makes people glean over, like totally just miss the scientific, nerdy side of marketing.
In the trenches, digging the numbers, talking to the customers, getting real feedback. I mean, what a simple step is to go to a customer or a potential customer. So if you're already an existing business, talk to your existing customers. If you're a startup, potential customers, and just flat out ask them, what do you think about this? It's not complicated. It gets skipped so often.
Yeah, I would say.
We totally know what the customer wants.
Yeah.
How do you know? Because this is what they want.
Because we're the experts in the market.
It's this circular logic that keeps going. Well, if you're gonna be on the front lines pushing innovation, then you can't be held back by what people already know.
Yeah.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. That's a whole other tangent that we go down that road. I don't think we should right now.
Okay. We'll keep the episode intact.
Yeah, I want to kind of touch on something here, right? Like there's a difference between your business plan marketing section and like a marketing strategy that is that exists in a successful small business. And I say successful meaning you're generating revenue, right?
Okay.
This can be 6 months, 2 years, 25 years down the road, right?
Okay.
But if you initially put together this business plan, it's not going to be quite as well founded in these facts and these tests and these trials and this information that you're going to get.
It's usually high level.
Right. It's super high level, and you're not going to quite have, 10 years of research essentially under your belt that a small business who has been in business for that long will have.
Even businesses that have been in business for a long time, they tend to have not done the research.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I would go in and work with these businesses that they've been going for 20 years, 30 years. And I'd be like, okay, let's pull up, like.
Let's talk about your marketing strategy. Word of mouth.
Yeah. And, I'm like, okay, let's look at some customer trends.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any of that data. Why not?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we didn't think to do anything. We didn't think to keep track of it. And so I know that it sounds like we're talking about startups, but man, most of these existing businesses, they need to go through this process just the same.
For sure.
And so, you got this business plan, and it's high level on the marketing section where you're just kind of putting out there and you're like, okay, we're going to use these market mediums to, reach our customers. This is the research that we're going to do. It's kind of like super high level. But at some point, that should feed into kind of like a more detailed marketing plan or marketing strategy.
Yeah. Like a dense, rich, task-filled process, right? Like this.
Oh, okay. Hone in on that. Task-filled process. What do you mean there? Because that's something important.
Sure. It's more than just running your day-to-day business, right? Like this is very purposeful and very, and this is kind of what I was alluding to. It's like very strategic. Like you take that business plan that you created and those assumptions that you've made based on whatever data it was that you had, and now you're going to put that into action, but not just willy-nilly whatever you decide to do, right? Like you're specifically going to target and isolate variables. This is where it gets super nerdy. And like we've said before, if you want a good marketer, hire a nerd, man.
Right.
Hire somebody that can run Excel just incredibly well, because you're gonna start to do that. You're gonna parse through all of this data and say, you know what, based on this experience that we've already had, or this research that we did, or this experience that somebody else has had, we think that this variable right here, if we tweak it like this, then it will yield this result. You make those assumptions, and then you test and you validate or you disprove, right? And then you move forward. And so it is very task filled, right? And it's like you start churning through that, and your business will start to make better and better marketing decisions until it becomes this fully refined marketing machine
And-
that almost becomes like an automatic kind of a thing, right?
Yeah. And so something that's really interesting here is you're talking about, refining that process and just churning it over and over again. You're really you're making these subtle adjustments that initially they're almost too minute to even notice,
Right.
imperceptible.
Mm-hmm.
And as you keep doing this, and that's why, you make the comment, you're like, a good marketer is someone that, they love the numbers. They run a trend line and they look for those trends. Marketing is very trend oriented,
Right.
not only in what your business is doing, but market trends, the bigger market trends, looking at product life cycles. Those are, that's a form of a trend line,
Yeah.
And so all of these things that are going into it, the interesting thing is that on the onset, you're not going to notice a successful marketing plan versus a crappy marketing plan because it's going to be small. But as it grows, the successful marketing plan is going to just shoot up and the crappy one is just going to fizzle out.
Yeah.
And at the point when you're realizing all of the growth, when you're getting all the sales, you're going to be like, oh, this is wonderful, but it's hard to go back and pinpoint, what did we do 5 years ago that makes this particular product line such a juggernaut in the market? Why are we in this fortunate position today? I'm like, it's not what you're doing today. Your marketing efforts today are not helping you today. They're helping you 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road.
Yeah.
And you've got to have that mindset. And so when you're drafting this plan, when I see these plans that are just like, I'm going to do this today and it's going to get me this, I'm like, have you ever planted a tree? Like, did you go out, put the seed in the ground, put some water on it, come out the next day and, pick all the apples?
Yeah. Poof.
I'm sorry, man. Like, that's not how it works. Is you go out there, you plant it, and then you work the soil, you weed it, you water it, you keep going time and time and time again. And then when that tree is producing, if you know anyone that has a fruit tree, man, they're just like giving it away because they're just like, I can't do anything with this because it's so plentiful.
Sure.
That's how marketing works. Is it's like right at first, it's ton of work, ton of effort. You're trying to get something to happen.
Yeah.
And then once that ball really starts rolling, once that momentum is going, it's like you're just making money hand over fist. And it seems effortless. It's just like, wow, we're making all this money. And I'm like, yeah, that's from all the work that you did previously. So today you got to do new work for what's going to happen down the road.
Right. And it's like, I actually really like that analogy a lot for marketing because and maybe this is going to get a little bit too complicated for this episode. So keep me in check here.
We're good. We're kind of bouncing a little bit, but I feel like we're keeping it. I don't know. That's what I feel.
Yeah. I
haven't talked to any of my customers to see if they like the episode.
Yeah. Touche. So, so you talked about like you go out and you plant this seed, right? And you water it and you weed it and all those things. And then once you kind of get this process right, you have this super plentiful fruit tree. Mm-hmm. But there is every infinite possibility in between that seed and that plentiful fruit tree that could occur.
Sure.
Right. And that's where the key to good marketing lies, right? Is because you're going to go through this process and you're going to come up with a mature fruit tree that doesn't ever flower. And you're going to be like, what the heck? We did everything. It's big. What happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you're going to try again the next year and you're going to be like, oh, you know what? Well, I learned about this bug species or whatever, or this I don't know what, I don't know.
I get what you're going for. In business, we call it competition.
Well, anything, market factors, world economics. There's so many variables that can play into this impact on your business. That, how fruitful, or not your tree becomes. Mm-hmm. And that's where that key to good marketing lies, is because, like you said, a good marketer will constantly be tweaking and adjusting and testing. And it's like you may start out with this crappy marketing plan and be going in the wrong direction, but then as you continue to test and push forward in those tasks, right? Continuing to like improve and learn and grow, like you'll start to move in the right direction.
Correct.
You'll start to kind of, even though there's this infinite window of possibilities that could occur, that there will be a huge segment of them that you're never even going to touch because you know not to go down that road, right? So automatically all of those possibilities become irrelevant, null and void, right? And so you're only moving toward more and more positive things. But the inverse is true. If you start making bad marketing decisions, it reopens up all of those bad options, so that could happen to your tree.
Let me grab an example to kind of bring this in a little bit more tangible, because
you don't want to just be like floating around in conversation with this
with the tree.
Yeah, with this idea that I have in my head that everybody can clearly see, right?
Yeah. So we're going to go tangible here for a second. I was talking to a business owner, and he had hired this lady to oversee his marketing for him.
Okay.
And so he pulls me in, and he's like, look, I know that you do this stuff. Help me out here. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And he's like, I can't get anything out of her. Like, she's not doing anything.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, explain a little bit. And he started talking about it. And immediately it was obvious that she didn't understand the cause and effect relationship of marketing.
Right.
And this is not uncommon. And when you talk about the testing and the data, like marketers, they're kind of scientists in a way. Like they want to tinker and then make improvements and then tinker some more and make more improvements and tinker some more and make more improvements.
I'm sure you meant to say psychologists.
I think so.
Sorry.
So, she wasn't really getting into the nuts and bolts, the nuances. And all she was doing was she was just putting one idea out there after another, and there was no building upon previous efforts that had been done.
No patience or resolve to
marketing
what
is very
committed to.
It's foundational. Like you lay a foundation, and then you put another layer down, and then you put another layer down.
Yeah.
And when you get these marketers that they try something, they like lay the first foundation, and then they bounce over here and they're like off doing something. I'm like, you got to connect these things. If you're going to run a social media campaign, have you connected it with your website, and then have you connected it with the webinar that you're putting on,
whatever paid advertising you're doing?
Yeah, have you put all of these together? Or are you just over here like running a webinar and saying, well, I don't know, why don't we try a billboard now? And you're just like bouncing, bing, 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 bing. I'm like, So that's what she was doing, is she was bouncing. And he said to me, and it was just really interesting. He's like, I just want to know, what do I have to do to sell? Like, I know my product sells.
Mm-hmm.
What do I have to do to get there? Does it cost me $100? Does it cost me $200? What does it cost me to get a customer? Because once I have a customer, I've got them. You know? And he's like, I know that, but
then it's just rinse and repeat.
Yeah, she won't tell me what I have to do to get there. And that's the key to marketing. Like, if you're putting together a marketing plan or a marketing strategy, you're not coming up with great ideas. You're coming up with a step, how-to instructions. It's the cookbook.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Exactly. Ooh, yeah. I like that.
If I add a cup of flour and then I put in 2 eggs and a cup of milk and I mix it and, add a pinch of salt and, like that's the cookbook.
Yeah.
If I leave out the cup of flour, it's like this gooey mess.
Yeah, exactly.
And marketing, if I leave out that one element, it's this gooey mess.
Right. Well, and man, you're full of good analogies tonight. That was pristine. I like that. I think I like that one better.
Better than the tree?
The tree.
One with the tree?
I don't know. They're good. They're both good.
Yeah.
But And again, that comes back to the quote unquote magic of marketing, where people think it's like this ethereal whatever, because it's like, well, just give me the recipe. Well, it's not that easy, because there's not the same recipe for every business. Even businesses who are in competition with each other, right? Like direct competition with each other,
Right.
will not have the same recipe.
And
Isn't that nutty?
but that's so good to bring up.
And so it's a discovery process that you yourself, your small business, has to go through in order to come up with, you create your own recipe.
Yeah. So we're kind of out of time.
Boo.
I know.
I like this. I like this topic a lot.
This has been really good. And I think we can do some follow-up on this. I think
creating your own marketing recipe.
Oh,
fancy.
Nice.
Marketing cinnamon rolls for dummies. Because otherwise I won't understand it. I'm just kidding.
But I want to take just 30 seconds, and this is the elevator pitch of this is the cliff notes of what we talked about today.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be doing a marketing plan, if it's going to be part of your business plan, it's usually going to be high level, but at some point you want to get into the weeds. You want to go deeper and have this marketing strategy. Your marketing strategy, you got to be thinking long term. You got to be thinking 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road. What actions today am I going to do that are going to give me results down the road? Not tomorrow, not next week.
And be specific about what those results, what you think those results are going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then what are you basing those assumptions on?
Exactly. Do your homework.
Yeah.
Do some research. Go talk to your customers. Validate what you think is going to happen.
Veritas.
And then start tweaking. Mm-hmm. Put it into practice. It's not going to work the first time. And so adjust here, adjust there. Make sure you're moving in the right direction.
Sure.
This is your plan. And write it down so simple that anyone can follow it. That's a marketing plan. It's the instructions of how to sell your products and services.
Yep.
And there's a lot to it. We could go on, and okay, we're doing another episode. We're gonna follow up, and we're gonna cover some more
cool.
More on this, but I think we better wrap up for today.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. If you guys have any questions, reach out to us at MMM Small Biz on Twitter. That's at MMM Small BIZ, and we will catch you next time.
Ciao.